This is probably the thickness of, I'd say, wet 3 to 4 sheets of paper, notebook paper. But again, like I just scraped my scraper. I scraped my spreader off, and this is a little thicker. It doesn't matter. We're going to be grinding this so fine. It doesn't matter if it's ugly. I like doing it even like this because then it'll dry quicker and it'll dry evenly. This stuff now will get drier quicker than this will. So it's just going to take me a little longer to let this dry. At this point, you're actually ready to set it aside to dry. I find, granted, you know, this is really subjective to climate. In my relatively dry winter climate, this takes me about 4 hours, assuming I'm not doing anything like boiling water in the kitchen. But if you are in like a humid environment in the summer, I was originally doing this through the summer, I set these upright against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I set these upright against the wall, and I had a fan blowing at them, and I could get these to dry in about 2 hours. Again, depending on humidity. I could tell when it would get more humid out because these would take longer. But, you know, you can expedite it, and that's not a problem. Some people have asked, can you put it in the oven? No. Gelatin is wet right now, and heat reconstitutes it and makes it more liquidy. Perhaps after you get to a point where it's kind of tacky, you might be able to. I've never done it because I'm usually occupied doing other things, so I don't need to speed it up. You'll know when this is dry when your edges start to peel on their own. Oh, sorry about that reflection. I'll put this one. Oh, that's a bad reflection in general. You'll know when it's ready because the edges will start to peel, and if you have a big enough sheet, you'll actually start to see this curve like this. As the gelatin contracts, your acrylic will curl as well, especially if you have a lot on there, which isn't a big deal. Your acrylic's going to flatten back out perfectly fine anyways. But once you're ready to peel that, I don't want to have one to peel because I'm pretty sure you guys can peel things. But the next step after you've peeled it is to take your sheets, which are super, super thin. I think you can see how thin that is. I mean, these are maybe actually the same thickness as a sheet of paper at this point. If they're not, if they're thicker than that, like you can, shoot, I'm so sorry about that reflection. You can see thicker areas right here. Not a big deal. What you're going to do after you pull it off is just cut it into sections. I like to cut them into strips of about 1 inch, and then cut them again into little 1 inch squares. So while I do this, if we have questions, I can do them.
So it looks basically like a sheet of acetate almost.
Almost, yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, so someone's asking, what's the difference between bronze, silver, and gold gelatin?
Their strength. If I really got into the technical aspects of it, gold gelatin is the first extraction from the animal of the gelatin, so it's the strongest and the purest. Silver is the second extraction, gold is the third extraction. And to get the same gelling and holding power from each subsequent extraction, you need more. So you're gonna, the bronze is, you're going to need more of that to be able to get the same. But this is when we're talking about things like making gels and mousses, or you know, things like that. Not for this. So yeah, you can get bronze for this as well.
Okay. We've got a couple of silly questions.
Is it from anyone named Avalon or Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's let's see. Where did it go?
I got threatened with some heckling before this.
You've got a little bit of it going on here. Let's see. Shauna McGreevy's here. She says, I think she needs to explain how she does her hair like that while she shows us how to make glitter.
Well, actually, I did this specifically for the for Duff Till Dawn on Food Network. And I went to the salon and had a girlfriend of mine from high school teach me. So I went and got my hair did twice just to get my hair did and to learn. And it's actually not tough.
Really?
Yeah, and it stays really well.
Yeah, I should start doing my hair like that. That would be fun. Well, and there's a bunch of you that have been doing the, retro, cute hairdo. That I think Liz and Avalon have both done it. And
Okay, now this part's going to get a little loud. Tell me if you want me to mute myself. Because now we're going to be moving over to a spice grinder. You can use a spice grinder or a coffee grinder. Here, I got to turn you, because I have about a 6-inch cord on this thing. And this is what I use. This is from Mr. Coffee, and it has a lot of little gizmos and gadgets on the side. This wasn't the original one I used, but I gotta say, this thing is awesome. I get a much better grind out of this than I did the original one I had, that only you just pressed it down and it grinds. This one will ask how many. It doesn't really matter, but I use a medium grind on this, and I get a beautiful, beautiful grind very efficiently, very little left over every time.
Perfect.
So now we are going to, well, it's not letting me show you. Well, here, I'll unplug it. So now when I put this in, I'm not just going to throw these in. When you put them in, you want them to stand up and down. And you don't want them to all follow a file going straight across in the same direction. You want them to alternate. If you have them going in the same direction, the blades just kind of grab them and swirl them around after a certain point, and you're not actually going to grind your gelatin anymore. When you put them in at different angles like this, standing upright, they're constantly bumping into each other, and they're constantly coming into contact with the blades. Made myself nuts for a while going, why is this happening? And then I realized what it was I needed to do. And don't overstuff this, because you're just going to cause yourself problems. You're going to have to go back in and take it out. It will stop up. Okay, so now we've got a whole bunch in there. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to turn this on. And literally all I'm doing is pushing this and allowing it to grind. So, Amelia, throw your hands up if this is too loud for everyone, or everybody just...
I'll mute you. So you'll just have to unmute yourself. So.
Well, here. I'll mute me for just a second because it's going to be loud.
All right. Sounds good. While you're doing that, a lot of you guys are on the chat are talking about CakeFest. That is one of the places you are going to be this year. So CakeFest 2015, Kara will be there. A bunch of cake artists will be there. I will be there also. So yeah, check out classes, check out all of that that's going on, and that's looking pretty cool.
Okay, so I can see mostly I don't have any large chunks in there, which is great. I can keep going at this point, or I can start filtering it out. But since I have some extra left on my table, I'm just going to go and filter this because I have to put the larger pieces in there anyways. So I'm going to take that lid off and remember how I put the stupid thing on. And I'm going to put it into a sifter over top of a bowl. Now, just like you would with flour or confectioner's sugar or cake, you're just going to sift, move it side to side. And as you can see, there's still a bit in there. That's fine, because we'll go back and we'll add this to our coffee grinder again. You can also take your hand and kind of like you also would, you can kind of force these through. But I wouldn't do that when you have a lot. Just throw it back in your grinder. The reason I want this stuff out now is because I don't want it to turn to complete powder. Let me show you about the size of the granules right now. I don't know if you can see that very well, but the granules they're about glitter size, what we typically expect of glitter. And this is really beautiful. I'm getting some really nice, you see, I'm getting some really nice shine and reflection from them. Believe it or not, black is my best reflector. Black and this beautiful sky blue. They all do really nicely, but for some reason those two just shine. Um, so now you can take the rest of this and you can put it back in your grinder and do the same thing. Add whatever sheets you have left to it and keep grinding. I won't do that again because it's, you guys get the point, I hope. But 1 ounce of sheet gelatin will get you about a 1/4 cup. And believe it or not, a 1/4 cup goes really far. But if you look at, yes, I still have it. If you look at my reindeer, it might be too bright. This only took me about 2 tablespoons worth of glitter to coat him.
The whole thing?
The whole thing, yeah.
Aww.
2 tablespoons. I mean, this goes really far. Now, one thing to definitely mention about the glitter, if you're using your hands to kind of sift, like I was showing you, don't do it too much. I did probably 25 batches when I first did this, and I was doing that a lot. That gelatin is actually really, really sharp, and it was cutting into my skin. And I didn't realize at first. I thought I was just a little bit sensitive to the sifter. Then I realized that I had tons of tiny little cuts on my fingers.
No.
Yeah. And also, if you decide to go into mass production like I did at first, wear a mask of some sort because this becomes airborne and it'll irritate your eyes, it'll irritate your nose, it'll irritate your lungs. But I mean, I could probably do 5 or 6 full batches of this and be fine, but I went really crazy. So I figured I would mention that to people just so that nobody else has that issue as well.